All right, we're going to level up on what we already learned in the last Ed puzzle. Now, we did a little bit of makeover problems, but this is where it gets a little more intense. And in high school, you're going to have to know how to do this pretty well. And what you can do before, what we learned is you can multiply this, and we always do the easy one, which is -1. And whenever you multiply something by -1, the signs will just change. So it's a -4y, it becomes a +4y. That's a -4, or +4, it becomes a -4. But with this one, that won't work out because we need to get a 0x or a 0y. So what we're going to do here is we're going to multiply the bottom equation by, now let's look at this. I see 20 and 10, and I see 6 and 4. Now, there is other ways to get rid of the y, but I look at the x's, and I'm like, okay, I think I can manage to get to 0x by looking at those numbers, because those numbers are factors, basically are multiples of each other, 10 and 20. So what would I have to multiply -10 by to get to a +20? And if you see there, that'll work out. Then I'm going to have 20x, right? In the next jump, I'll have +8y. Why do I have positive? Because the negative times the negative, all right? Two negatives multiplied equal positive. And the last one, -2 times the 4, it's going to be -8. And once that happens, it's super easy. After that, you're good to go. And let me just go ahead, and what I usually do is I cross all this out. You're done with that part. And you've changed that equation. We talked about this in the last video. If you haven't watched it, watch it. And now we're going to add down, okay? I'm going to change that. Now, when I do this, I get 0x, 0x, a little bit of technical difficulties here. Here we go, 0x, and then I get +14y. And then from here, I'm going to get -14, okay? And we should know we have 0x, so that's gone. And we're just going to go ahead and solve for the y. Divide this by 14. Y equals -1. Okay? So that shouldn't have been too difficult. We found the y. And if you were taking a test, A, B, C, and you had points here, you could go ahead and go, well, wherever the y is, if this was -1, this is +1, this is -1, you know for sure it's not B, because you already found out what the y was. The y is -1, okay? So the y is -1. I'm going to delete all this, and then we know that the y is -1. Now here's the deal. You can choose either equation, either one. It doesn't matter which one you choose. I'm going to go ahead and use the top one. Kind of just use that as a method. Always use the top one for me. I'm going to go -20x. We don't know what the x is, but we do know what the y is. So instead of putting y, I'm going to write those parentheses, and I'm going to plug in my -1. Okay, so now I have -20x. 6 times -1, -6, and -6 is on this side. All right, let's go ahead and solve the equation. You're going to go ahead and add 6 to both sides first. Now I have -20x equals -6, and +6 is 0. Well, let's think about this sentence. What times -20 equals 0? What are we going to put here to make this a true statement? What could x be? Could x be 0? And yes, x is 0. So we're going to divide -20 to both sides. All right, and x would be 0. Okay, so your final answer is 0, -1. Again, in that on a graph, that's where they would connect. So 0, -1 is like right there. It would be like right there, 0, -1. And those two lines would connect right there if you were to graph them. All right, guys. Okay, now for this one, it's a little different, a little trickier. So not really that tricky, but there is multiple ways to solve this. And what I love about math, there are multiple ways to get to your answer. In so many different kinds of problems, there's multiple ways to get there. So if I was to change the problem, if I want to multiply this guy, would it be easier for me to multiply to do this part here, to get rid of this, or to get rid of this, the 2 and the 4? If I look at it, I'm like, okay, the 2 and the 4 are jumping out to me. What if I just multiply this bottom equation by 2? Then this would become negative 4y with a positive 4y and a negative 4y. They would cancel out, right? But what if I decided to multiply the top equation? Top equation, what if I wanted to get rid of these guys? Could I go ahead and multiply the top by negative 3? I chose negative 3 because I want this to become a positive 6, right? Because then this would cancel out. It doesn't matter either way. You could choose either method and you'll get the same exact answer. All right. So there's times where you can change it up a little bit and do something different than your partner, and you'll still get that same answer. So I'm going to choose just the 2 here and make it easier on my board. I'm going to negative 12x, negative 4y equals negative 8. Why don't you guys go ahead and try to solve this problem for me? As I go here, I'm going to have negative 14x plus 0y equals negative 14. That 14 comes up again. Interesting. Well, when we solve this, negative 14x, this is obviously gone, equals negative 14. Well, what times negative 14 equals negative 14? Well, when you times something by 1, you just get the same answer, right? So 1 will work. If 1 is our x, are we good to figure out the y? Go for it. All right, so we're going to go ahead and take that 1 and put it where our x is, right? Because we got rid of the y. And then let's go ahead and rewrite this equation. So I'm going to have negative 2x, I'm just doing it in my head right now, plus 4y equals negative 6. Now, what did I do wrong here? Not negative 2x, Marusik. Negative 2. We replaced the x, right? We replaced the x with the 1. So now I have this. I'm going to add 2 to this side. 4y equals negative 4. Y equals negative 1. Okay. So your final answer would have been 1, negative 1. And you guys can get there. That's not too crazy. You guys are good with that. All right. All right. This is the spiciest of the spices. All right. Let me get this open. When you deal with this one, you're going to look at both sides, your x and your y. If we were to add down, you look here, you look here. And you start to realize, okay, well, nothing's really going to, I can't multiply anything by 3 to get to positive 5. I can't multiply anything to 2 to get to negative 5. So your brain has to start thinking, guess what? This is probably the spiciest problem you'll have all year. In my regulars, for sure. You got to multiply both equations, and you have to make over both. You got to give both equations a makeover. And some people started getting this towards the end of winter break, or right before winter break. I'm going to give you a hint. Well, actually, you know what? Forget about the hints. Let's just talk about both sides of the problem. Let me cross this out so that doesn't mess with you. No, we're not multiplying by 14. It was just question 14 that worksheet. What if I said, of these two numbers, what is like the lowest common multiple? We used to do lowest common denominator with fractions. What if we did 3? What are the next multiples? 6, 9, 12, 15, 18. Okay. And I'm going to stop there. Do any of these numbers, does 5 go into any of them? And guess what? What if we wanted to change this to 15x and negative 15x? Could we do that? And the answer is yes. I could change this top to be negative 15. What would I multiply it by? 3. I can change the bottom to be positive 15. Positive 15 would be 5. And if you change this problem in this format, you can get a right answer. So your problem is going to change to negative 15x, right, when I multiply it. Positive 15y equals, what's that going to be? Negative 75. Okay. Now this bottom one, 15x plus 10y equals 50. You good with the math there? And now let's go ahead and be rock stars and solve this the way we know how. If we were going to do this, we get 0x here. 25 y equals negative 25. You guys can do this. Don't make them think it's too impossible. You guys always get so down on yourself sometimes. The confidence is wary, so you don't do well. You guys can handle this. You're more than capable. All right, so that's your y. Now, this is the easier part. I'm going to delete everything. Y was what, negative 1? Make that note so I don't forget. I'm going to use the bottom one. You know why? Because I see a negative here, and I'm like, you know what? I don't even want to mess with a negative at all in the problem. So I'm going to use the bottom equation, and instead of y, what am I going to put in its place? Negative 1. Now go ahead and solve this problem. We have 3x minus 2 equals 10. Go ahead and solve the rest of it. Add 2. I get 3x equals 12. Divide 3x equals 4. And your final answer is 4, negative 1. Okay? Not too crazy. You can handle this. You guys got this, all right? So do the best you can on the quizzes, and then we'll eventually have some sort of assessment towards the end of the week. But guys, if you have any questions, let me know. You got to reach out, all right? Good job.